Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe high net worth individuals and professional teams struggle to find great capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy. Proven tax deferral strategies such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way to exit highly appreciated assets, tax deferred, so you can create, preserve, and grow your wealth. I'm Pearson York, filling in for Brett Swarts. Today, we have an awesome guest, expert in non-food franchising. He's going to add a ton of value, and we're going to get right into it. Please welcome John Ostenson. How you doing, man?
Hey, Pierce, doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited about this because you have a lot of value. We were talking a little bit before the show about just some of the benefits of franchising versus startup and all that kind of stuff. So I'd like to just kind of start off really quick. What is a franchise, and what are the number one, number two secrets that you could give somebody for wanting to start a franchise or buy a franchise?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's roughly 4,000 franchise companies in the U.S. Roughly half of those are in food or in hotels, two sectors that we don't play in. We play in all the other different industries. And really, by definition, a franchise is three things. It's a shared brand. It's some sort of support provided by the corporate entity, what we'll call the franchisor, to a franchisee. And that franchisee is paying typically in the form of a royalty for that support, for that shared name, for all the systems. So that's what a franchise is. And, as far as one or two pieces of advice, I've been the president of an Inc. 500 franchise system. I've worked with franchise owners across North America. It sounds cliche to say, Pierce, but our best owners were the ones that followed the system most closely. Those were our top performing owners. And that is why you buy into a franchise system. You buy in because you've got a coach on the sidelines in that franchisor. You've got other franchisees living the same thing day in, day out. That can be a shared support system, providing best practices. And most importantly, you've got a playbook. You're starting on third base. It's a proven path to profitability if you go out and execute it. So, of course, you have synergies in the supply chain, buying in bulk, and you've got other little benefits along the way. But those would be some of the main ones that I would point out.
So it sounds like the person who's going to benefit most from a franchise is someone who wants to come in, follow a proven system, not really deviate from it, and just do what they've already built and what they say.
Yeah, and you're going to have some leeway. A good franchisor is going to allow their franchisees to go test different marketing vehicles or try some new things. So it's not extremely rigid in most cases. However, you do have to stay within the lines. And we have clients. I'm a member of the Entrepreneurs Organization. Some of our EO clients that are already business owners come to me and say, "Hey, we love the idea of a franchise. We've been there, done that. Don't have to start again. With something new. We like the idea of stepping into something that's already built out." Some of them that works great for, and some of them are too entrepreneurial, and I have to tell them that. So, it's not right for everyone, but I'd say for the vast majority of would-be business owners and entrepreneurs out there, it's just a better path. The stats would show that 92% of franchise owners are still in business after 5 years. Well, that's multiple times, what a traditional startup would be.
Yeah, the traditional startup has got that entrepreneur who's, teetering on the line of genius and crazy. And, the ones who are making huge impacts who are like, I'm going to put a dome on Mars, right? Like those guys are on a different level of kind of thought and what they're trying to do and accomplish. So it sounds like the if you're an entrepreneur who's not interested in following someone's rules or following kind of like the proven system and you want to go make your own way, it might not be a good fit for you.
That's true. And again, I'd say the vast majority, though, we work with doctors and lawyers that don't have any true business experience. Maybe they're very specialized in their own profession. We work with a lot of those across the country, but then a lot of corporate executives and a lot of existing business owners. I can give you case study after case study of existing business owners that have come to us and said, "Hey, we're building out a portfolio. Maybe, and some have been a franchising before, some haven't, but they see this as a key piece. And even if you have a vision of having 10 businesses under your umbrella down the road, at least a couple of those being franchises, you're going to learn a lot of best practices that you can then implement into your other businesses." So, we see a wide variety of different backgrounds getting involved. And one thing I'd point out, Pierce, is probably a third of our clients will come in and they're looking to leave the corporate world. They're looking to run the day-to-day operations, what we call an owner-operator. But a solid 2/3 of our clients are coming in saying, "Hey, The stock market's all over the place. We're all guessing at what interest rates and the Fed are going to do next. Only so many good real estate deals. Bitcoin's not where we want it to be. What do we do with this excess capital that's sitting on the sidelines that's currently at record levels out there? And many of them are turning to franchising as a better path to diversifying their portfolio and getting into business ownership, which, as you can build cash flow, you can build an exit value, an asset that's going to have residual value down the road, but you also get tax write-offs as a business owner. Many things that you can do that you can't do as a W-2.
Yeah, and that's huge. I want to dig into something that you kind of said. You said about a third of the people who buying franchises want to go in and be the owner operator. This is your mom and pop, right? Who want to buy a, I know you're non-food, but the thing that's popping in mind is a Taco Bell or a Domino's or whatever, right? What are some examples of these non-food franchises? What are some of your bigger franchises that you actually do?
Yeah, so we work with over 600 different companies, so all different types of industries. But where we're seeing interest right now, and for a good while now, I'd say non-trendy, non-sexy is where people want to be. They want those Amazon resistant, in some cases recession resistant or COVID resistant, checking those boxes. Businesses that I would say are understandable and cash flowing, things like insulation. That's a $53 billion market. Gutters, dumpsters, oil changes. Things like that are where we're seeing a lot of smart professionals putting their investments. But then it's also, something that we've heard about for a while is a recession. We've been talking about it probably for a decade now. And if it ever does fully materialize, and the economy does slow down some, what kind of business do you want to be positioned in? And so many of our clients, the feedback I give them is, where are you personally going to continue to spend money in times of economic downturn? You're going to spend money on things you care about: your kids, your pets, your aging parent, your health, your home. And so those are areas that are maybe less discretionary. And that's where we see a lot of individuals joining into franchising.
So as these are like your Jiffy Lubes, your Great Clips, your maybe like your Chevrons and your gas stations, are these all?
Yeah, those would be some of the bigger brands. And oftentimes I'd say in food, brand really matters. In some of these other industries, like I mentioned, insulation, $53 billion fragmented space. Most of your listeners probably couldn't name an insulation company out there. Maybe they can name one or two if they're. That's a huge disruptible market because it's so fragmented, and you come in with a white collar approach to a blue collar industry. Well, name recognition matters less there than everything else that goes as part of that franchise offering. It's having marketing where you've got large data sets and you know how to open up and target new territories. You've got all the systems. In some cases, you may have a call center answering phones, providing a more professional approach. In some cases, you have proprietary product, and so it's all these other attributes that help you distinguish from the competition, oftentimes more so than the brand itself.
That's really interesting. So let's go back to this insulation for a second. So you've got a third of the people that are coming back buying want to be owner operators, and they want to franchise the insulation business. Maybe not a big brand. It's a fragment. They see the opportunity. They come in and they are operating it. Then you have the other group of people who see the cash flow potential, and they that's a 3-year-old. The other people who are using they see it as a potential business to cash flow, and they don't want to operate it themselves. Is that correct?
Correct. And we would call that semi-passive or semi-absentee. Not every franchise system, but most franchise systems do allow for that. In some of those cases, Pierce, they're keeping their day job and getting this going as a side hustle. In other cases, again, they may be an existing business owner and they've already got other businesses, and they say, hey, let's add this into the portfolio. The key there is putting a good manager in place to run the day-to-day. The business isn't going to run itself. It could be a great vehicle, still has to have someone drive it. The nice thing in franchising versus a traditional startup, though, is that you've got that franchisor support on the sidelines. So ultimately, as the owner, the buck still stops with you. However, you can kind of tag team with that franchisor to manage the manager. They can be a great technical resource that your manager can go to for questions. And it takes some of the burden off of you so that you can keep doing the main thing.
These people who have managers in place, what's the number one secret to finding a good manager?
Yeah, it's just like with any business. It's someone that you can trust, someone that you've incentivized so that you really align your interest. And I think it's someone that's hungry. And so what we found is a good avatar for a lot of businesses that we've invested in personally, as well as our clients. Oftentimes it's someone that has been out there in the working world a couple of years post-college. They've gotten some professional experience, maybe some B2B sales background, just, they've learned how to deal with people. But they're tired of the cubicle world. They're tired of, even in the early stages, building something for someone else. They want to go build their own empire. And so some of those can really, but they may not have the capital to go do it on their own. And so those could be great managers that you bring in. You put together a very strong incentive program where the better they do, the better you and your business do. In some cases, some of our clients will actually open up the cap table and give them some equity or sweat equity. In some cases, like I had one where I had a GM who was 27, had been a CPA. And he went out and started selling, driveway business for us. And, but a couple months in, he said, "Hey, I really like this opportunity. I want to be a part of what we're building. Can I buy into 10 to 20% equity?" And of course, we loved hearing that, and he's putting his own skin in the game, which makes him even stickier. So, you've got to go in with the reality that, hey, that first manager may not be the right guy or right gal forever. And that's where a headache can come in and you have to replace them. But doing your due diligence and finding a great player. I mean, I've got plenty of client case studies where, they've really trusted the person, given them some equity and said, "Hey, go make us proud." And then, and I'll just give one example. Client Nathan comes to mind. Nathan's the largest franchisee of 2 Men and a Truck moving service based in Columbia, South Carolina. He's grown that to over 12 markets, I believe he's in now. And that's about a $30 million a year business, larger than most of our clients' businesses. But every year, Nathan and I do a deal together where he's come back and, he said, "Hey, what's hot? What do you like these days?" And I show him a few options. He takes one, runs with it, puts a young guy in place and says, "Hey, go make us proud." And he actually does give them equity. And in every case, he's come back and bought additional locations within the first year, which is always a great sign. So, that's just kind of an illustration.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So incentivizing the employees, to perform, with a monetary incentive or equity, and you give them some ownership over the, the business themselves, so that at some point, right, they becomes theirs,
Right.
and they care a lot more. That's huge. The startup costs. Talk to me a little bit about those.
Yeah, of course, they're across the board. But when you look at the franchise fee plus the startup cost plus working capital, usually for about 3 months, that's kind of how we think about the all-in investment when you combine those pieces. I'd say probably 2/3 to 75% of the placements we're doing right now fall somewhere between 150 and 300. That's just kind of a sweet spot for a lot of the businesses that are resonating in the market right now. Now, if we're talking about a laundromat or a car wash, obviously you're going to be well north of that. And we do have some that are a little bit below that 150 mark all in. But I'd say the sweet spot is kind of right there, give or take around 200 to 250 is probably the median. And from a funding standpoint, probably a third of our clients will use cash to fund the business. A third will use an SBA loan. Leveraging up like that is very common in franchising. And then another third will use an old retirement plan where they'll self-direct that, an IRA or 401k, through what's called a ROBS program. And then, of course, some use the HELOC or portfolio loan or other ways of funding it.
Sure. So you're looking at a pretty, it's relatively sizable for, probably the average American, 150 to 300 grand to put down. And, you're thinking maybe you'll start cash flowing month 3. What type of, what type of like upfront labor, getting things up and running, does it require?
Yeah, the franchisor is going to have a very comprehensive checklist, and many of those things they're doing for you. Some of the things you're doing on your end, and obviously you're going to go through full on training with them. Usually takes about a week or so in person, as well as some online training. Yeah, but again, if you're running the business semi-absentee and you put a manager in place, you can send that manager off to training, let them get trained up. They can handle a lot of these items for you. Um, one thing that we hear as a common thread is, I want to find businesses that check those boxes I mentioned earlier, but have strong franchisor or leadership teams. They've got the competitive advantages. They've got the great financial models. Also, businesses that can be run with as few employees as possible and yield the highest ROI. And so, we have. I did a post recently where, it's 5 opportunities for where you can generate 2 million in revenue with only 2 employees. And so, those are the types of opportunities that people get excited about, where you can, essentially have fewer headaches because you have fewer employees. In some cases, you're using 1099s, or maybe it's more of a contractor type model. So a lot of it depends on the role you want to play in the business, what your investment level is, what you see as needs in the market. And then, because we do more deals than anybody else in the country, we get to see firsthand what's resonating with different backgrounds and why. So we kind of bring all that intelligence in to your situation and your market, and help customize that group of opportunities for consideration.
What's the best franchise right now?
The best franchise? Well, there's one that I did last year. I'd say best have to be the one we did the most of. I mentioned gutters. It's a gutter business, gutter installs. We did 7 placements last year with this one company. We had doctors, we had a Wall Street attorney, we had corporate executives. The numbers on the business, all in investment, you're right around 200,000, and what it's yielding is higher than most, and that's why so many people bought in. But their franchisees are averaging 1.7 million across the country, and they're doing that at like a 28% bottom line EBITDA margin end of the day. And so I tell my clients, let's go in with a conservative approach. Even though that's the average of the franchise system, let's say we only do 2/3 as well, or even half as well. Is there enough meat on the bone? And that'd be an example where you'd say, yeah, absolutely. I'd say it's more common to see margins oftentimes that 15 to 25% range. So whenever you have one that's north of that, it gets a lot of attention, especially when you put good volume behind it. But where we're seeing a lot of attention at the moment is there's 5 opportunities out there that are true passive plays. It's kind of the unicorn that's never existed up until now, but these are ones where the franchisor will actually manage the business for you. You get on a call for 2 hours a month to check in with the business, and they review the KPIs with you. But there's 5 opportunities out there. Again, very rare. There's only 5 I know of. But we're hoping that more will jump on that bandwagon, because we're seeing huge demand behind those businesses.
And what are those 5?
Okay. 2 are in the pet space. 1 is in the property services. Actually, 2 are in the property services space. And then 1 is more in the health and wellness space with like 3D printed custom insoles and footwear. Very well established company, but just hasn't offered this model in the past. And I had lunch with the franchisor, the CEO, 2 weeks ago. And I said, hey, you want to grow fast? You've got everything in place. You've got the team that's already opening corporate locations. Why don't you open some more corporate locations and do that on behalf of franchisees, where all they do is they put their money in and they get a good return, and you're getting control over managing the business for them. Because the franchisor is always going to know the right way to manage the business, right?
Sure.
And so really excited about that one. That's one that I'm personally going to invest in myself.
So that sounds like more of a limited partner position, as opposed to more of a general partner.
Very similar, very similar. Ultimately, everything's still under your name. However, you're essentially entering into a management agreement with them on their behalf. And the great thing is with this one, they've already said down the road, we'll look to buy back those locations from you if ever you look to exit. So you kind of have a built-in exit strategy as well. And it's just a great values-driven CEO at the top of that business. So,
what are the tax implications of buying and investing in a franchise like that?
yeah, when you put in capital, I mean, there could be some things that you can depreciate, like, Section 179, accelerated depreciation on them, heavy CapEx type equipment. Some of the businesses aren't as heavy on the CapEx side. Obviously, you're putting in your basis, your investment amount. Let's say you put in 200,000, and maybe the majority of that is, whether it be franchise fee or startup costs or inventory. Over time, when you go to exit, obviously you're going to have some options, and I'd probably defer to you on being the expert in that space. But really, you're building up that capital outlay up front. I don't want to play tax CPA beyond that. One thing I mentioned this the other day that I do with my kids, and we got a huge response when I mentioned this on LinkedIn. I've got 3 young kids, and they're responsible for packaging and shipping out our books. Well, I pay them each $12,000 per year, and roll half of that into a Roth IRA for each of them. So right off to me, they're able to fund the IRA. Now they've got earned income. That's an example of how you can create generational wealth beyond just handing a business down.
Yeah, those those little strategies are awesome, and they're all over the place, especially in the tax code. Like just little things like that you can do to, I don't know, I would say the common folk doesn't know. Like, oh, he can package the books and put 12 grand. You got 3 kids, $36,000 write off, and they're getting almost 18 grand put into a Roth, which is growing tax free. Heck yeah. And they're young, so they're going to continue to grow, right? That's going to continue to compound. And when they pull it out, they're going to be free, tax free. It's money. It's a fantastic strategy. So, I was kind of asking a little bit more like, does real estate ever come into play here with your franchise model?
It does. In some of the businesses that we work with, have a real estate component. Some don't. Some are more out in the field. The gutter company is an example there. Or maybe if they do have a real estate component, you're subleasing a small industrial, footprint. It's not necessarily the whole, build out of a retail customer facing type space. And so it varies by the business. Obviously, when you think about an oil change or you think about a laundromat, there's going to be a real estate component. In some cases, you can lease that. But obviously, if you wanted to make it part of a bigger real estate strategy, then there's going to be tactics around, purchasing that land or doing lease backs. I've got a client up in Columbus, Ohio right now who is a real estate guy that says, hey, that's my special sauce, site selection, the build out, the negotiations. And so we're looking at a subset of opportunities that really play to that. There are a couple of models out there. We did an oil change one recently where the franchisor is actually willing to buy. They've got an investor team. They will actually buy the real estate if you want them to, and then you lease it from them. So there are different strategies, but picking up on the theme of real estate, probably 75% of our clients also own investment real estate, whether it be single family homes or syndications or apartment complexes. What we found is the mindset and the approach from a building a portfolio standpoint plays very well together, franchising and real estate. We end up going on a lot of real estate podcasts. There's just a lot of interest, I think, and in businesses that maybe they're currently outsourcing to service their properties. They say, wait a minute, I can save some money by doing that myself, and maybe also offering it to other friends of mine that that need that service.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And especially I think it's a mindset thing where you have like the real estate investor who's also the entrepreneur type who's looking to be financially literate, right? Educate themselves on different ways to earn passive income and buy assets, really. And this is a really interesting model that you guys have, like buying the franchise. Because I always thought, oh, Domino's or whatever, right? Like a 7-Eleven. I gotta like work that. But now you're telling me, most of your clients are buying them and putting managers in place to operate those, whole thing. And if you can incentivize them, it might cost you a little bit more, but your returns ultimately are going to be a lot higher if you have someone who cares.
Yeah.
So that's a super interesting kind of like diversifiable option for a lot of people, especially for those who, are kind of in this space where they're scared. Like where are you putting money right now, right? We got banks failing as of this recording, which is 3/13/23. Banks failing, big banks getting bailed out. The feds are going to raise rates for sure. They're going up again, right? Inflation's out of control. Like, where do people put money? This seems like it's a really, really, really interesting kind of like alternative investment strategy a lot of people can use where it's a service base, some of these daily needs stuff that aren't going anywhere, the relatively recession proof. You got to get your oil changed. I mean, you can go past your 5,000 miles, you'll probably be okay, but you hit 10, like you're definitely going to need it,
Yeah. You're not going to, not pull back on educating your kids or taking care of your pets. I mean, it's your aging parents. I mean, lots of interest. I mean, 10,000 people turning 65 every day. The government's not going to be there to support them. And so I think models that, maybe differentiate a little bit from what's in the market today. Because, some of these spaces are crowded. There's some that, fitness as an example. There are a couple of fitness concepts that we like out there, but by and large, I think there's a lot of duplication. I think it's already a crowded space.
Sure.
Mosquitoes, I think we've already seen multiple big brands go in there and they compete on price. That's not a space I want my clients playing, So I think there's a layer of strategy too of, hey, where's the puck today? Where's the puck moving? And how do we position ourselves in a large needs-based type industry to then capitalize on those types of opportunities?
Yeah. Insulation's huge. Like that, I didn't even realize that was like a full business model. And then the fact that some of these franchisors will actually manage it, where you can basically come in as an LP and see some really fantastic returns on those investments. Let's talk about liquidating. So people want to sell their franchises. What's the market look like for selling a franchise? And then we'll talk, some tax implications after that. But and then what are they typically getting for the business they build?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the multiples depend on the industry as well as the size business. Oftentimes we find if it's a larger business, then it also commands a higher multiple and not just a higher price tag. And, oftentimes if it's a recurring revenue service or if it's a B2B service, there are different variables as to, the pricing beyond just the EBITDA. But there was an interesting study done recently where they looked over a 10-year period at 2,000 business transactions or exits. And they looked at both franchise and non-franchise comparables, within like kind industries. And what they found were the franchise businesses traded at a multiple on average of 1.5 times the non-franchised. So that's not to say that's always going to be the case, but when you look at a large data set, that was the average that they found. So there's clearly value being seen in that resale market by a potential buyer where they step in. And, I've got a lot of clients that say, hey, we think it's less risky rather than starting up a new franchise in the area. It's less risky to buy an existing business. And my feedback is it may be, but once you pull back the covers and you really understand the P&L, is it, are the numbers what they, and then also there's risk when all of a sudden you buy the business, you paid a multiple for it. But what if your key employees leave? What if a key client leaves? Things you don't know until you're actually past the point of return and you don't have that franchisor on the sideline to support you. So it is interesting when you start looking at it from different angles. There's a chapter in my book on franchises versus startups and one on franchises versus resales, because I think a lot of times you have to dig in further.
Yeah. And you guys can get a free copy of the book, Non-Food Franchising by John. And you just have to go to franbridgeconsulting.com, sign up for the newsletter. Am I missing anything there?
No, we'll give you a free digital copy, either audio or PDF. And if you'd prefer to go out to Amazon, as we're talking before the show, all the profits go to charity, to a great nonprofit that we support. Yeah,
what an awesome cause. Okay, so exiting, you said 1.5 times multiple. Is that gross?
That'd be 1.5, essentially on the purchase price. So again, using apples to apples, looking at from a multiple standpoint. So EBITDA of option A, EBITDA of option B, and like kind of industries, franchise and non-franchise, you're seeing a 1.5 multiple typically on the franchised versus non-franchised.
So you get an extra 1.5 times multiple if you're a franchise versus a non-franchise.
Correct. Which was eye-opening. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what are your typical multiples on these service-based franchises?
Yeah, a lot of them are in that, I'd say 3 to 6 range is kind of what we see. Obviously, if you have heavier CapEx, if you're well entrenched in the market, I mean, a lot of times there's different variables that can lead that higher. Certainly, if there's intellectual property associated with the business, which is the case with some of these.
So when you go to sell, a lot of times you're selling just the business, right? And I mean, sometimes you have real estate associated with it if you've purchased real estate. But if it's a lease, right, you're pretty much selling just the business and moving over. So what tax strategies are you guys using for your friends who are liquidating assets like that?
Yeah. So, in full transparency, that's not a role that we play very often, of coming in as the tax advisor upon a sale. That's a little bit outside of our wheelhouse. I don't want to speculate too much down that path. But certainly a lot of our owners do own multiple territories of a business, or they may own multiple businesses. I know there's different tactics that they can employ, and that are more advantageous, but I really wouldn't pretend to be an expert on that topic.
Yeah. So one of the things that we really like to do, and one of the reasons why this podcast exists, is because that's the strategy behind that exact question is there's a few different things you can do. One of the things that we like to do is called a deferred sales trust, which allows um, someone to liquidate any highly appreciated asset, defer the tax, and then go ahead and reinvest the proceeds. And what's unique is that it works for a multitude of different assets, not just real estate like a 1031. It works for a
Right.
business or franchise or stock or primary home or commercial real estate or even a racehorse. So there's a lot of benefits to that, because one of the things that you can't do is when those businesses is you can't 1031 them. So that's a tough, how are the people supposed to continue to re-up if they can't do a 1031? And that's where we come in with the deferred sales trust strategy that allows them to go. The other unique thing is people can sell real estate or a stock or whatever, and this might be a really good alternative investment for you guys, right? Those people that are interested in deferring the tax and are looking for some of these different assets to invest in. A franchise where you're putting a manager in place and an insulation business might be a great place for you. Or the one where they're already, the franchisor is the one actually actively managing the business, and you're putting it in as a kind of like an LP, and you're able to basically leverage all of their expertise, all of their knowledge, right, all of their business acumen, and run an entire franchise from them. So those might be some really unique opportunities that you can invest in with all that deferred tax and the gains that you've made. And that's how you continue to grow and increase your wealth. So if you guys want to learn more about that, you can come to the Deferred Sales Trust Mastermind every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Just go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. And that's the thing. We have guys like John Ostenson on, who come to us with, "Hey man, have you guys thought about franchises?" I'm like, "No, I haven't." Tell me about it. Right. And I think that that's the beauty of the day and the age that we live in, right? Where we're able to just have a conversation like this, right? And let you guys listen in and learn. I had no idea there was franchises for insulation.
Yeah. Multiple.
And they're really good returns. And it's not just money pumped into venture capital or whatever, right? And your deposits are hopefully safe, right? From the bank.
Yeah, no, there's so many beautiful niches out there. We did 2 deals this month with the business that sets up temporary walls around construction sites. And so this could be in hospitals, it could be hotels, it could be in the airport. You walk by these temporary walls all the time. You don't think about it, but that's a business in itself. And here's a company that's, that's a very passive type business. You put them in place, and then you're collecting the payments on the walls, on a monthly basis, renting them out, if you will, and they pay for themselves in 70 days. And so, it's these little niches that you don't think about until it's right in front of you. We just had a client sign up for a dog training franchise up in Virginia, 4 territories last week. Things you don't think about, off the top of your head.
Right. Well, it's brilliant. And, it's all about the collaboration with smart people, like you, John, and how we can make everything better for the clients and how we can work together. Right. So when your franchisees, right, go to sell, how they can defer the tax and then reinvest in more franchises. Right. We know, hey, this is a good opportunity for some of the people who have, maybe are in real estate that don't want to be in banks right now. Hey, this might be a really great opportunity for you to cash flow. All right. Check out this. So that's the beauty of what we're doing down here. And, that's why you listen to these things. So it's pretty awesome. John, where can people find you?
Yeah, come out to franbridgeconsulting.com. That's FRAN bridgeconsulting.com. we put out a monthly newsletter. If you sign up for that, we'll share a copy of our book. Again, a digital copy will be sent out to you the next day. We've gotten great feedback on that. If you'd prefer to go out to Amazon and purchase non-food franchising out there, all the profits go to great nonprofits. So, I'd say come out to our website, check out our content, and would love to engage. And I don't think I mentioned this, but it's entirely free to work with us. We're funded by the franchise companies, very much like an executive search model, and so you never pay us a nickel. So it's a great, clean model, and we'd love to help you like we've helped so many others.
That's really interesting. And the last thing we I want to dive into before we go, tell us a little bit about the nonprofit. Where is the proceeds going to, and what does it do?
Yeah, great nonprofit, very well established, very credentialed across the world. Hope International is the name of it. And my son and I were fortunate enough to go on a mission trip last year down to the Dominican and kind of support them down there. But they've got operations literally all around the world. And what the purpose of Hope International does is they are ministry based, but they're helping entrepreneurs in very difficult areas. Whether it be purchase inventory or just be able to launch their businesses, they can then sustain their community as well as their family, really create a hand up approach versus a handout, and sustainable commerce end of the day. So I really love the mission they have, and we've enjoyed getting behind them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Love the heart behind that too, giving back, and it just goes to the mission that's bigger than us, so that's really awesome. Awesome. All right, John, thank you so much for coming on. FranBridgeConsulting.com. Sign up for the newsletter, get the free book, or go to Amazon, support the cause. Any parting words?
No, I think stay open-minded. Over 90% of our clients end up purchasing something that they never had on their radar. And that's the fun part about this. So I think whether it be in this genre or in something else, I think staying open-minded. And what I've always found is when you're analyzing option A and option B, option C tends to come out of left field. And so I think, these uncertain times right now, staying open-minded and being flexible is the name of the game.
Yeah, awesome. And don't forget to go to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions website, capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Sign up for the mastermind every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Please hit the like button, subscribe button, notification bell. If you're on the YouTube or the interwebs, leave a comment. Let us know what you got most valuable out of this podcast. Really helps out the channel, increases that engagement so we can get awesome guests like John on the show and provide more and more value to you guys. So thank you so much for watching. Another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. Not having a plan is the enemy. Using proven tax deferral strategies such as the Deferred Sales Trust, investing in things like franchises and real estate, passive income and assets is how you create, preserve, and grow your wealth. Catch you guys on the next one. Bye now.